Hello there. I wanted to make a quick video about an article that popped up in my Google feed. Now, the article was titled, well, it was in the North Devon Journal, and it's titled Jehovah's Witnesses Distribute Anti-Gay Harness Your Habits in North Devon. Now, allow me to just read some of this article to you. It says, Devon and Cornwall police have said a leaflet handed out in North Devon isn't a crime, despite it advising gay people to control their urges. I just love the fact that non-witnesses are now referring to the Awake magazine as a leaflet because it's now so thin and flimsy. That's another subject. It carries on. The leaflet, entitled How to Harness Your Habits, was distributed in North Devon by Jehovah's Witnesses and contains an article asking, what does the Bible say about homosexuality? In it, the religious group states that rejecting homosexuality is completely different to rejecting people of a different skin colour, and says their views are the same as people who view smoking as harmful and even repugnant. Clearly a terrible analogy likening homosexuals to smokers. I've read the article and it does indeed say that you should be able to object to homosexuality in just the same way as you would object to smoking, when, you know, I don't need to explain how they're completely different things. And then if I read on, it says, it also compares gay people to animals, but says, unlike animals, they can choose not to act on their impulses. I'm going to come back to that in a moment because that's actually quite sloppy journalism. It says, the journal was contacted by a reader who wishes to remain anonymous, who felt belittled by the leaflet. I completely respect other people's beliefs, and people who disagree with homosexuality because of their religion do not bother me, she said. But when people actively seek you out to force their beliefs upon you and tell you what you are doing is wrong, then that does upset me. They have encroached on my life by forcing their literature into my home and belittled my relationship and my life. Now I'm just going to leave it there and go back to what was said earlier about gay people being like animals, because that is not actually what the Awake magazine says. If you read the paragraph in question, it says, some would say that the Bible's position is cruel, but their claim is based on the premise that we must act on our impulses, or that sexual impulses in particular are so important that they should not, even cannot, be controlled. However, the Bible dignifies humans by stating that they can resist their urges. Unlike animals, they can choose not to act on their impulses. So that quite clearly is not calling gay people animals or likening them to animals. It is saying that humans should be able to conquer their urges, unlike animals who can't. Not that I'm in any way supportive of that kind of language. It's basically saying that people should control or inhibit their urges based on what's contained in some sacred text that arbitrarily rules against attraction between people of the same sex. My point is that when journalists do this, when they skim over something and conclude it says something that it doesn't say and then write about it, not only does that make them look bad, it also makes life harder for people like me who try to raise awareness about the harmful rhetoric coming out of Watchtower. It means that Jehovah's Witnesses, when they're reading these newspaper articles, can say, ah, well, there you see, that's just proof that Satan's media is making it up as they go along. I don't want to waste too much time commenting on the article itself, but I do want to just highlight what's said on page 7, because it gives a table with questions and answers. It says, what does the Bible say? And then it says, which of these statements would you consider to be true? Number 1, the Bible condemns homosexual acts. Number 2, the Bible condones homosexual acts. Number 3, the Bible promotes homophobia, a hatred of or prejudice toward homosexuals. Now for the answers it says number 1, true, well that's fairly obvious. Number 2, false, again it's fairly obvious that the Bible does not condone homosexual acts. But then number 3, it says, false. Although the Bible condemns homosexual acts, it does not encourage prejudice, hate crimes, or any other kind of mistreatment of homosexuals. Now, this is a funny one, because if I turn to Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13, it says, if a man lies down with a male, the same as one lies down with a woman, both of them have done a detestable thing. They should be put to death without fail. Their own blood is upon them. Again, Watchtower is saying that the Bible nowhere encourages prejudice, hate crimes, or any other kind of mistreatment of homosexuals. I think this verse would contradict that. I also just want to revisit what this person says about the way this material was presented to her and the way it caused her, she felt insulted by it. She said, but when people actively seek you out to force their beliefs upon you and tell you that what you are doing is wrong, then that does upset me. I think that's one of the most, if not the most, troubling things about Watchtower's stance on homosexuality. It's no surprise that a fundamentalist Christian group would take a strong stand against homosexuality. The problem comes when you start thrusting that belief in people's faces. Now, we don't know under what circumstances this lady received this Awake magazine. I find it hard to believe that it was just indiscriminately posted through her door, because as a witness, well, when I was a witness, that was not the sort of thing we did. We'd only post magazines through if it was a regular route call. But even if that was the case, maybe she started receiving the magazines and didn't know that Jehovah's Witnesses were against gay people, and she therefore received a magazine through the door because she'd received the magazines in the past, and then read this hateful material. Even in that situation, you could argue that she's having that view, that anti-gay view, thrust on her without asking for it. It's one thing to post literature through people's doors, talking about the need for world peace, talking about the need to conserve nature, to protect the environment, to protect animal species. It's another thing entirely to drop literature through the door condemning someone for who they love or what their sexual orientation is. And on this point, it's interesting when you read on in the Awake article, it says, at the same time, Jehovah's Witnesses strive to pursue peace with all people. While they reject homosexual acts, Jehovah's Witnesses do not force their view on others, nor do they participate in homophobic hate crimes or rejoice when they hear of them. Jehovah's Witnesses strive to follow the golden rule by treating others the way they themselves would like to be treated. Now, nobody's accusing Jehovah's Witnesses of being engaged in homophobic hate crimes, but they most certainly do force their view on others by definition. They are an evangelical sect that literally goes to people's doors and tells them their views on homosexuals. And if bizarrely, this claim is repeated in the final paragraph of the article, where it says, while Jehovah's Witnesses uphold the moral code set forth in the Bible, they do not force their views on others, nor do they try to reverse laws that protect the human rights of those whose lifestyle differs from theirs. The message that Jehovah's Witnesses bear is a positive one, and they eagerly share it with all who will listen. So twice in the same article, Watchtower has conveyed a false message to the reader that they do not try and force their views about homosexual people on others. Well, what was it that we saw in a recent Caleb and Sophia Become Jehovah's Friend cartoon?
But I want everyone to get to paradise.
So does Jehovah. And you know what? People can change. That's why we share his message. So, what can you say to Carrie?
Well, I could tell her about the paradise. I could tell her about the animals and the resurrection.
That's awesome. Let's practice.
This cartoon caused outrage purely because it showed a mother coercing her child to go to school and start making life miserable for classmates whose parents may happen to be gay or lesbian. That is by definition forcing your views on other people. Once again, Watchtower is caught saying something in its literature that is demonstrably false in an effort to try and coerce people into agreeing with its teachings. Now, it's interesting when you read this article in the North Devon Journal, it mentions that Devon and Cornwall police were contacted about the incident, and they got back and said, while it doesn't appear to meet the threshold to be considered a crime, these have been passed on to our diverse communities team to look into. I think that's a sensible outcome. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm completely supportive of LGBT rights. I absolutely detest homophobia. I've done videos on this before. I think it's a completely ignorant and outdated and narrow-minded thing to thrust your personal convictions on other people and tell other people that the way they live their lives is wrong, even though it has absolutely no bearing on your life. On the other hand, I also believe in free speech. And I believe that if there are people who are ignorant and narrow-minded to have this view about gay people, they should be allowed to not only say that in public, they should be allowed, if they want, to actually print publications that say that. And those publications should be allowed to stand or fall on their own merits. Where this gets complicated, however, is when you consider that Jehovah's Witnesses in the United Kingdom are a charity. Is it right that a UK registered charity should be distributing literature that discriminates against people of a certain sexual orientation? Is it right for a UK charity to be using its resources to tell gay and lesbian people that their feelings for their partners are little more than a bad habit? I would argue that this is completely wrong. Though it should never be a crime for narrow-minded people to share their views both verbally and in print, it's definitely wrong for a UK charity to go around behaving in this manner. That's why I think if you are part of the LGBT community and you feel insulted by what's said in this Awake article, you should contact the Charity Commission and file an official complaint. Don't get me wrong, I have my personal reservations about the Charity Commission because they don't actually have the power to close down charities that aren't actually charities, which I consider to be a not inconsiderable handicap when it comes to their current statutory inquiry against Watchtower in Britain. But I definitely think that everybody who is personally impacted by Watchtower should register their complaints with the Charity Commission, because only by doing that can we reach a critical mass where the law might just stand a chance of being changed. And having spoken to some of the good people at the Charity Commission, I know their hearts are in the right place, and I think we should support their efforts in any way we can. Maybe, just maybe, if enough of us officially voice our contempt for the hateful stuff that gets printed in Watchtower literature, we stand a chance of making a positive change so that charities are held to higher standards in the future. I'm Lloyd Evans, and you've been watching my John Cedars channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, and as always, thank you for watching.